let's introduce ourselves. We have a couple of newer people and they may not know us all. And you can say, yes, the name is right there, but it's nice to hear somebody else talk besides myself. Grant, why don't you start us off? You're our guest tonight.
Okay, I'm Grant Veedor, the Blackhawk County Auditor and Commissioner of Elections. I'm here tonight to give a presentation about the new Iowa voting laws, and you'll hear from me later.
All right, Jerry.
You're on mute.
Oh, you're muted, dear.
My dog was in the background. Hi, I'm Jerry Thornsberry, and I serve as League Secretary, and I'm also serve as BlackHawk Soil and Water Conservation District Commissioner. Saving our soils and improving our water is our mission.
Important. All right, let's go to the next person.
Might not be the same on everybody's screen.
Yeah.
Pat?
Yeah, call them out, Sherry.
All right, Pat.
Pat Harper, and I'm the treasurer of our League of Women Voters.
What?
I'm not the treasurer. I've been for a long time. I'm membership there.
You still get your money though a lot of times.
She just
Yeah.
wanted to see if you were paying attention.
Yeah,
Evidently.
testing.
Oh my goodness, we like to have fun. A little punchy maybe? It's been a long day, long week.
No, I saw
Oh.
I saw Marcia on the screen. See, that's where the treasurer.
Oh,
Oh. Karen, we're so glad to have you with us. Please say hello.
maybe we're not sure whether you said Sharon or Karen. I thought you
Oh,
said Karen.
Yeah. Yeah, she did.
Is
You
it
did
I
Karen.
apologize.
Okay.
I am
Okay.
using an inhaler that has kind of made my voice go
Yes.
downhill. I said Karen.
Yes. Karen.
Maybe I
Agee.
could get my finger spelling out.
I'm Karen Agee. Thank you for letting me join.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you.
Sharon made me do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Well,
With that introduction, how about I finish introducing myself
Yes,
as a friend
exactly.
of Karen, a mentee of Willie Mae, and deeply involved in voter registration, sometimes to the exclusion of other things, but everybody seems to tolerate that. Okay.
That's excellent. And you know, I have found, Sharon, that you're one of those people do not say no to you.
Hey. Sharon,
I've met a few
Karen, close
people
your
like
ears.
that. I have a dear friend, Rosemary Beach. We were involved in the Cedar Falls Authors Festival, and she would come up with these really audacious ideas, and she was going to call these really high-level people, and then I realized she knew them all. It was no big deal to her, but to me, it was like, you're going to call who? All right, let's go on. Janice.
Hi, I'm Janice Judish, and I'm a member of the League.
Thanks. Janice is a new board member. We appreciate her involvement. She is a terrific person, and she's a very caring and dedicated mom with a son who's had a lot of health challenges.
Definitely.
So it's been kind of a tough year.
Yes, definitely.
So good to see you. EJ.
EJ Gallagher. I currently work with Partners in Education for League. I've done that for a number of years, and I've been a member, I think, for about 20 years. Done a lot of things in League.
Now, something you should know about EJ. EJ invited a friend, Michael Dargan
Yeah.
to get involved with League. And I was busy teaching. I had no time to do much of anything. And then suddenly a couple of years later, there was a situation and they needed a secretary. So I was able to get out of a commitment as secretary of another organization. And suddenly it was like jumping off the deep end of the pool. I didn't know the lingo. I didn't know everybody's faces. I didn't know how they did things. I was just kind of, okay, let's take minutes. But, you know, it was, so I wouldn't be here if EJ had not said, you know, Mike, we need more men in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, EJ. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
Thank you.
And I'm still learning the lingo.
Yeah.
Then when you learn it, they change it, but that's the way life goes.
That's right. That's right. All right, Marcia.
My name is Marcia Butcham, and I've been a member of League for a few years now. And recently, as of, I think it was really July 1st, that right? I became the treasurer. And so if you saw a funny face on me when Pat was talking, that's why. I thought maybe I'd been replaced already. But I'm enjoying League, and I'm enjoying the women. And Sharon and I have worked a lot together on voting too, registrations.
Yes. Now, Marcia is a yes person. I love that about her. So, all right, let's move on to Jean Sealand.
Hi, I'm Jean Sealand, and I work with the forums.
Yeah. And she's a hard person to say no to as well. We appreciate everything she does because that includes the candidate forums and the legislative forums.
And I appreciate how everyone just sort of steps up to take part in it.
Yes. And we have found that we have a couple of really wonderful members who want to be in the background. And there's a place for them as well. And that's terrific. All right, excellent. All right, Michael.
Well, I'm spouse of Sherry. What else is there to say?
Except he's our tech support guru. And
I can't believe I'm VP of League of Women Voters. That'll look really good in my obituary, won't it? Used to be I padded my resume. Now it's my obituary. That's like a joke. Oh well. I see we have Judy Harrington in and Jerry Perot and other people.
all right, thank you, Jerry. Judy, say hello, please.
I certainly will. Thank you very much. I was just on a Zoom conversation with my New Jersey family, and one great-great-nephew is spending an internship year in Jerusalem and happened coincidentally to call in to his mom, so that's why I'm a little bit late. I'm one of those in the background people that I heard you mentioning, Sherry, a moment ago. When I first joined League, I was very active for many, many years. And I continue to join because your goals are so important to me. But my energies are in different directions at this time.
I understand. We've got a lot of people who are committed multiple places. The next person, Maureen, certainly fits that category.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maureen White, and I'm on the board of League of Women Voters.
Do you want to say anything about your other commitments?
Nope, I won't take people's time.
All right. Michelle, it's great to have you with us tonight. Do you want to say hi?
I do. My name is Michelle T. Meyer, and I will not put on my video because I scared myself.
Oh,
I know what I would do to you guys. So anyway, I will, thanks for that, all the introductions. I appreciate that, Sherry. I'll be talking a little bit about the Christmas family that EJ helps out with too. So look forward to
great.
doing that.
All right. Okay. Jerry Pro.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What am I supposed to talk about?
Just yourself.
I got in late.
Now suddenly I can't hear you, Jerry. Is there a problem?
No, can you hear me now?
Yes.
No?
Yes. We sure can.
Oh. What?
Maybe she can't hear us.
Can you hear us,
No, I
Jerry?
can. Oh, I can hear you. What was the question?
Oh, I just wanted you to say hello.
Oh, okay. Hello, I'm a retired faculty member at UNI and figuring out what to do next.
All right. Well, we're just going to jump in, folks. My philosophy is with high technology, you have to have high people. That's why I think it's important for us to go ahead and introduce ourselves because of the technology. Sometimes people feel isolated, and I want us to feel connected. Pat is going to start off just by talking a little bit about membership numbers and some of our new members.
Yes, last year, what was recorded at the national level was 52 members. That's what we paid for. But there was one member who didn't pay, so was registered as inactive, but became active again with payment this year. So we started out really with 53 members, and then we have 6 new members, but we did lose some who resigned. But I'm going to read the new members, and I see one of them is with us, Karen Adji. I hope I'm saying her last name right. We also have Karen Showalter, who is with the elections department for our county. Vicki Brown, who is the chair for the Blackhawk County Democrats, and her daughter, Rhonda Macrina. And then we have Lynn Carthane and Sarah Quinn.
Right.
So when we total it all up, we have some members who still haven't paid their dues for or what we ever, when they will pay them, I will, find out by the end of the year. But we have now 56 members. That's what it shows at the national level. So we've made a gain after losing some. So we are on our way. I hope sometime soon we hit 75, but that's a long time goal.
Oh my. When I became president, I think we had less than 40.
We did. It was in the 30s.
I think it was in the 30s, 35, 36. We have gained ground.
We're doing all right. Yeah.
Pat yourselves on the back. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sharon, I am sorry that Willie Mae is not here because she would brag you up.
Well,
but would you talk to us a little bit about what has happened this last year with voter registration?
Yes, I will. And I talked with Willie Mae yesterday, just by the way. And
oh, there she is. Hang on a second. You can't see this, but Willie Mae was in the waiting room and I was ignoring her. Can you hear us, Willie Mae?
Hi, Willie Mae.
Good evening, Willie Mae. Oh, well, she's on mute. I don't know what to say, folks. It could be that she can hear us.
Well, maybe her
Okay.
son is there and will help her.
I'll try to keep an eye on the waiting room.
Thank you, dear.
Okay.
All right, Sharon, sorry.
No, that's okay. So to say a few words about voter registration, we really did, by everybody's account, because I'm a relatively new member, so it's hard for me to judge what's happening recently against anything in the past. And it's also hard, and for that reason, it's also hard to figure out the impact.
I'm having trouble.
There she is.
Connected.
And so the person that taught me first about how voter registration ought to be, as I imagine she taught a lot of you, was Willie May. But also people on this call that I've worked closely with, Marcia and Pat, both are absolutely veteran performers of voter registration. And I appreciate that we had a meeting the 29th of November, I think. We set up a meeting to try to gather in what we had learned from voter registration this past season. I don't know if you call it seasons, but I was thinking of it in terms of seasons. I put it together on a spreadsheet and it will be made available to everybody. I think people may have seen the list. We were at the last things we did were the libraries. And we were at the Waterloo Library 4 times, and we were at the Cedar Falls Library 4 times. We're seeing how things are changing a bit in terms of voter registration. And so the way we are functioning is changing a bit. Grant, I think you may find it interesting that particularly, well, actually in both libraries, most people that we were right at the door. Hello, are you registered to vote? Almost everybody was, okay? And so we're thinking, gee, well, is this the best location for us? And then we changed tactics a little bit. You remember, Marcia, weren't you with me when we stumbled upon, oh, hey, do you have any questions about the new voter laws? Whoa, then we got people's attention, yes. All these people who were registered to vote, and there were a handful of predictable reactions, and we were very pleased at that. So we got a wonderful gift, did we not, in these new voting laws. So we're trying to use those a lot. We're making plans to meet over the next 3 months and make plans, do some things so that as soon as it's appropriate for the season, we will be ready for various locations. We think the most likely locations are, People's Clinic has been a very good location for us. And we particularly like that because there are a lot of people there who are not registered to vote. That feels like a rather underserved population. The fact that people who are sick or with somebody sick trying to go into the clinic will stop and talk about whether they're registered to vote and ask their questions, I think is huge on that. We also want to return to the libraries and be there as often as the library directors will let us. I talked to both of them and we'll be talking with them again. And it's clear they agree that our being there is a huge education component that fits in well with the library's mission there. Okay, I don't want to take up too much time. Other people have things to say. Just is there anybody else who has been involved in voter registration? Do you have a quick thing to add to that? Okay then.
All right, thank you so much. Grant, you are up. Would you like to have a drum roll perhaps?
Could you just sing a little song for me, a Christmas song before we get started? Well, I'll take that as a no. I'm going to.
You would all want to mute. My grandsons like my singing, but not so much that. I have to say, in introduction, a little bit of a confession, and perhaps a plea for forgiveness, because I thought, hey, I can do this for the special election. I'm holding the letter of shame from Mr. Grant Veedor. I printed off our absentee ballot request. I got mine filled out, left them on a clipboard on the dining room table for a couple of days over the weekend. We got them off on Monday, and I couldn't tell you the dates. I'm just saying all of this happened within 4 days.
Grant could tell you the date.
What?
Grant could tell you the date. I could see the smirk on his face.
Anyway, I was informed our office received your absentee ballot request for the November 30th city runoff election. However, the request was received after the deadline of 5 o'clock on Monday, November 15th, which is the day that I mailed it. So, yes, walk of shame. I guess I can pin it on my back and have you guys make fun of me. Michael sets a couple of very cruel things when we got these letters.
I appreciate your sacrifice. You're making it easier to illustrate part of my presentation. So
we went to the courthouse and voted. But, you know, even somebody paying attention.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen here. I believe we tried it before the meeting and it worked. So are you now seeing a Blackhawk County, Iowa screen with new voting laws? Okay. I'll talk a little bit about our website here before I get into the meat of the presentation. On this, this is all part of the elections section of the county website. You can find all these other sections up here under government, and then of course these other possibilities. But under elections, we're looking at the page of new voting laws. There are all these other choices that you can look at, lists of elected officials, how to get an absentee ballot, finding your voting location, and so on. As far as these new voting laws go, we tried to make this as accessible as possible. And I thank the League for the work that you've done in disseminating this information. But we have a few different ways of looking at this here. This 2021 election law for Iowa voters, if you click on that, it gets you to the pamphlet that was put together. It's just a 2-pager specifically for voters to talk about the new laws about absentee voting, voting at the polls, and so on. This is the short version. And I'm going to go through with you the long version tonight, so that my purpose that I was asked to be here for was to talk about the effects of the new legislation on the election that we held in November. And so I'm going to go through the longer version since there are more things than what's on the shorter version. But before I go to that, I wanted to point out also, this was hopefully something that was even more accessible to people without having to read a 2-page document, a Q&A, which we had the dates for the city school elections of what the deadlines were and so forth. And now this has been updated to show the dates for the primary and general elections. So when you get a chance, you might look through this, see if those questions are helpful. And also, if there are other questions that you think would be worthwhile to put on there, just let me know. It's very easy to add more questions and answers there. But now we will go to the more comprehensive version of the election law changes, which is the one that county auditors have been using. So we're not going to go over everything. I'm just going to hit the points on the ones that either affected the election this fall or that we expect to affect the elections next year. So the very first item is the change in the time allowed to vote, to register to vote before the election. You now have to be registered 15 days before the election. It used to be 10 days before a primary or a general and 11 days before other elections. So I didn't think that this would make a huge difference, especially since people can still register to vote on election day at the polls. But I asked our staff if they saw any repercussions of this law change. They weren't aware of any. They didn't see a noticeable change in election day registrations, which you might see if people weren't able to register like 10 days before the election or 11 days. So not a big change with that. When we get into a larger election, we might see some consequences, but that remains to be seen. Then moving on down here, there's all these different sections of topics that had laws changed and are kind of invisible to most people, like nominations. The only people that are going to worry about these are people that are actually running for office, and there are some changes in deadlines, there are changes in thresholds of signatures needed and so forth. And quite a few of these are not effective until January of next year, so they didn't affect this last fall's election at all. Then we get into vacancies, a few changes there, and on ballots, things that most people don't have to worry about. Then we get into absentee voting, and that's where the fun starts. So let me get my notes here. I did want to make a note on number 6 under ballots. The law changed so that we no longer have to publish a facsimile of the ballot. We used to have to show basically a picture of what the first rotation in the county ballot looked like. And then we had to present a list of everybody else that's on the ballot in other places where that ballot was not in effect. Now we just have to publish a list with the rest of our public notice telling about the election. So this saves us money. It saves cities and schools money because we charge them for their elections. But then this is, and you know, most auditors don't care about this. They want to get away from as much publication costs as possible. But it always makes me hurt for the newspapers because they're really struggling, and this is one of their sure sources of income when there are legal notices required. And I just not going to get started talking about newspapers, but they're in a tough place. So,
Grant, this is Jerry. Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
Often those sample ballots that are in the newspaper, you can cut them out and use them as a teaching aid. Maybe teachers even use them in their classrooms. Is there any way to get a copy of a sample ballot?
Absolutely.
Oh,
great
good.
Question. If you go to our website now, I don't know if it will still show from the last election or not, but if you go to find your voting location on here, and if you enter your address, I'm just going to put mine in. So 135, and this is very specific. You don't want to make any mistakes on this. Graceline Boulevard, Waterloo, and then submit. This will tell you, yeah, I need a Cedar Falls address, I guess. This will tell you the information, what precinct you're in, what legislative districts and so forth. And then down at the bottom, if there's an election coming up, it will show your ballot. It'll also show a map of your precinct. So if somebody just wanted to give me their address, I could show you. I mean, a Cedar Falls address. Anybody want to volunteer one?
Yes, I'll volunteer.
Okay.
How about 1523?
1533? 1523.
North,
West
18th Street. Karen, don't you say a word. Karen knows how directionally challenged I am. So that's West 18th Street, Cedar Falls.
Okay. All right. Oh, it's gone now. I'm sorry. I thought since it does show the Cedar Falls runoff as being the next election, that it would still have that information on there, but it's been removed. So I
But
apologize.
can I say something about it, Grant?
Yes, you
I felt very handicapped. I had people wanting to, you have people that don't know what a ballot looks like. You have new people every year. And I would like to be able to prepare our voter registration kits with at least a sample ballot. Sure, could I show somebody this? But in the amount of time it takes to fumble with a phone to get that spot, they're gone, I think. So
Well, if you want to have one in hand,
yes, that's what I want.
then you can print them off ahead of time.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. We a lot of things where we used to spend a lot of money on printing to have things available for people in the office. We expect people to be able to print them themselves now. We know that not everybody can do that, and if somebody can't do that, we will accommodate you by making paper copies of things. But most of this stuff is very available. Absentee ballot request forms, absentee the sample ballots, voter registration forms. You just need to be able to navigate around the site, which isn't that difficult, and we're always ready to help if you call us on the phone or email us. So anyway, this bar up here makes it so that I can't see my sessions. So I'm just going to open a new session. And we were at absentee ballots. Yeah, we were at absentee ballots. So the first one there says the first day to submit an absentee request is changed from 120 days to 70 days before the election. We didn't see any effects of that in this last election that I know of. And this is not the most onerous change, but for the general election, we got plenty of requests, months in advance. And it's, I'm sure that it's a matter of convenience for a lot of people, but there's always going to be a handful of people that this really has an effect on, people that are going overseas and that sort of thing. Especially we've seen the Postal Service slow down in some situations, and we actually had in this last election, somebody was living in Washington, D.C., and they gave us the information on how long our ballot took to get to them, which was an unusually long time, and it didn't get back in time enough to count. But I'll kind of get on to that later. So that changed. And then number 3, we can't send request forms to people unless they ask for one. You it's kind of a strange law, the way that it's being interpreted, at least by the Secretary of State's office. They say if somebody, last year we mailed out absentee request forms for a couple of elections, most prominently the general election. And some people in the legislature didn't like that. The Secretary of State sent out request forms. They didn't like that either. And so they changed the law. Now, if somebody says, could you send me a request form? They're supposed to say, send one to me, Grant Veedor. I want to vote. Please send me an absentee ballot request form. If they say, send me one for me and my wife, Kim Veedor, we're supposed to turn them down because the individual voter is supposed to make that request. However, if somebody calls up and says, we're going to be doing a voter registration drive and we want to have some absentee ballot request forms available, could you send us 20? We'd say, sure. That's allowable under the law as the Secretary of State's office interprets it. So something to stick away in your memory. Now, and stop me anytime you have questions, okay? Move on to number 4 here. That's where it says the Secretary of State cannot send out those forms unless there's a public health disaster, which has to be declared by the governor, and then the legislature has to direct the Secretary of State to send out those forms. Then number 5 talks about how third parties can still send out the forms, but they can't pre-fill any of the fields on the forms except for the type and the date of the election. And that was a big controversy last year when some county auditors pre-filled some fields, but we don't have time to get into all of that. But I think the main point of this is to understand that even though the Secretary of State and county auditor is not going to send you a ballot request form, you're probably going to get one at least for a general election, because the parties are very assiduous about this, and not just the parties, sometimes some other private organizations send out these forms, and they are not constrained from doing this. They only have to follow the rules about which form fields may be pre-filled. Now, number 6, the first day that county auditors may mail absentee ballots to voters is changed from 29 to 20 days before the election. This did not work a hardship on us in the November election. We had, I should have looked it up, but it was we had over 1,000 absentee. Yeah, I'm going to grab something here. So we had 4,808 absentee ballots in this election.
Wow.
Now, since we have 20,000 plus in a general election, we had like 40,000 last year because the unusual situation with the pandemic. But there's a big difference. We can handle the volume that we handled for this past election with that law change. It takes being organized. You don't want to get caught with your pants down, but that wasn't a big hardship. It is something that we're going to have to be really prepared for in a big election when we're getting 15, 20,000 ballot requests. Because not only is that first day to mail absentee ballots, and it's also the first day that people can vote at the office, changed from 29 days to 20 days. But then when you get to the last day, which number is that? Anyway, that's the one that Sherry was talking about. It used to be that you could vote, and I should be able to see it here, but I'm blind in these cases. The last day that you can request a ballot by mail is 15 days before the election. And it used to be 10 days before the election. So you see that we're chopping off 9 days at one end, we're chopping off 5 days at the other end, and that leaves us with this period of from 20 days to 15 days before the election, when we're mailing out all the absentee ballot requests that we've received. All the ballots that we've received requests for. So that 5 days is really going to be a big challenge when we're having scores of thousands of absentee ballot requests. So, and of course, that is difficult for a lot of voters like Sherry. It's something that people can get used to, I'm sure, but it's going to affect people that, like I say, if they're going out of town, the farther away you are, the harder this is to get done in a timely fashion. So it's something that people need to be aware of. and that we need to prepare for as best we can here at the office. So,
And then you have the matter of the post office delivery.
yeah, and I really don't want to speak as an expert on that. We have had very good relations with the local post office. They have been very cooperative, and they give our mail top priority. So, you know, you hear of problems here and there. There's not total consistency on how post offices handle these things. And so I really can't comment on it. I just do want to say that we've had very good cooperation locally. So then going to number 9, the first day to vote absentee in person at a satellite location has changed from 29 to 20 days as well. And the key point here is satellite voting locations may only be established by a public petition with a minimum of 100 signatures. The big change there is that our office used to be able to establish satellite locations on our own motion, and it is a much more efficient process if we are determining locations based on historical data that we have of what locations yield the most voters are, and you know, the ones that have done poorly in the past. So if we're only doing the ones that people are petitioning for, we might not have the efficiency that we've had in the past. And there are other counties that really count on satellite voting a lot more than BlackHawk County does. And we have a moderate amount, but some counties like Johnson and Scott and Polk, they have a large percentage of their votes cast by satellite locations. And it's, you know, they've been used to establishing them through the auditor's office. Now, this doesn't.
Grant?
Yes.
This is Marcia. So the thing that I think about is you and I that used to have a satellite location, because that would be a big one. And so that one would have to have a petition.
Yes. And we usually have multiple locations at UNI for a general election. And yes, they need to be petitioned. But what I was about to say is that hopefully with cooperation between our office and the political parties and other involved organizations, candidates, and so forth, we can sit down and look at what we think will be good locations. And, you know, there's nothing that says we can't encourage the political parties or other entities to request a location that we think will be a good location. So it remains to be seen how all that will work out.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Then let's go down to number 13 and talk about drop boxes. The main effect that we noticed about the drop box requirements in this latest set of elections was, and we anticipated this, you know, people were asking before the election, so are we going to have to check these boxes on weekends? What if we have a runoff? Do we have to check them on Thanksgiving Day and the day after Thanksgiving? And you know, I don't think there's any other way to read the law, but, you know, auditors would ask the Secretary of State's office, and we were told, yes, indeed, the law says you will check them 4 times a day. You will keep a log of when you checked them and how many ballots there were and what the seal number was that you closed up your drop box with when you were done, and what the seal number was when you opened it. So, and we did have a runoff, and I did go there 4 times on Thanksgiving and 4 times on the day after, and I believe I had a total of 1 ballot that I picked up in those 2 days. So, you know, this is, it's an overreaction to well, of course, all the controversy and all of the allegations, unfounded allegations about election misconduct. But hopefully the legislature, when they see some of these statistics, will be a little more reasonable. I mean, after all, as you can see on, let's see, number 4 under 13, it says must be under 24-hour video surveillance, which creates a recording. So why do you have to check for ballots 4 times a day? What's the point of that? Because if somebody is tampering with it, they're going to be filmed, and they could tamper with it between, you know, visit 2 and visit 3 for all you know. So, you know, I would think that that could be adjusted. Now, there were very few counties that had more than one drop box. We did not have more than one drop box, but the new law only permits one drop box per county, and it has to be on the courthouse grounds or wherever the auditor's office is holding, has its office for elections. So moving on to
And Grant, can I just point something out? The obvious. There are lots of dinky little counties in Iowa that have, I don't know, 10,000 people or fewer. And perhaps for them, one drop box is not a big deal. But if you live in some of the other places, it's a real problem.
yeah, you know, it's a problem that didn't exist before, because most counties didn't have drop boxes at all until the primary last year, when people started talking about drop boxes are a good idea, so that people don't have to come in to the courthouse during a pandemic. So once, you know, we got one at that time, a bunch of other counties did. There were some counties that had multi-purpose drop boxes that weren't just for ballots. And this law says that you can only put ballots in a ballot drop box. But, you know, until we experienced it, we didn't realize the possibilities, because originally I was thinking, yeah, we'll put one in Cedar Falls, maybe 2 in Waterloo, maybe LaPorte City. But we were quickly told that even before they passed this law, that wasn't the interpretation we were supposed to follow. So yeah, that's too bad. But let's move on. So number 15, that's what I was looking for before, about the change of the date from 15 days before the election, or to 15 days from 11 days before the election, when we must receive Sherry's absentee ballot request if we're going to let her vote by mail. So sorry, Sherry, and I understand that you did get to vote anyway, eventually, right? And as she said, we sent out notices to people who missed the deadline to tell them what their other choices were to be able to vote. Now, the number 16 is an odd change in the law. It says if somebody did like Sherry did, we received that request from the 14th day through the 7th day before the election, we're supposed to notify the voter. I don't understand why it doesn't tell us to notify the voter all the way up to the election, but that's what we did anyway. We did it by mail until about a week before the election, and then we started contacting people by phone if we could. So I asked the office what kind of effect that had in the last election. And Josh Rosendahl in our office wrote me this note that said we had 90 total absentee ballot request forms that were received after the deadline, 9-0. Letters were mailed to each individual explaining the remaining options, and some of the individuals did in fact take the other avenues to vote, but I do not have a total list of how many that entails. So if it was 90 in a small election, you know, expect more in a big election. And if, you know, a dozen of those 90 didn't have any other way of getting a ballot, then expect that number to increase. So I think that's an unfortunate change. Now, going on to number 17, that's where the law was changed that we have to receive your absentee ballot by close of the polls on election day, which has been changed for all elections to 8 p.m. It used to be that if we received it after the election, if it had a postmark or a Postal Service barcode showing that you sent it in the day before the election or earlier, it would still count as long as we received it by the time of the canvass certifying the election. So that's out. And I asked the office what the result of that was. There were 9 ballots that we had to reject because they were received too late. And once again, you can expect more in a bigger election. And even when it's just 9, you know, the newspaper was asking me about this, and I said, well, 9. And, you know, when you say it, it sounds like a small number. You know, if anybody misses their opportunity to vote, I feel bad. I feel like, well, if we would have just been able to get more information to that person, they would have gotten their ballot in on time. And, you know, this is, I think, unnecessarily making it harder for people to vote because it was not a hardship for us to take in and tabulate additional ballots after the election. The irony of this is that the County Auditors Association in Iowa had for years asked the legislature to make this change, to have a drop dead date time. I was never in favor of that change, but it was the majority of the county auditors who were. And so legislators said, well, see, we're giving you what you want, but you know, when it's in conjunction with all these other things, making it harder, then it seems like that's unnecessary piling on. Okay. Another one that's kind of in the background is number 19, the absentee and special voter precinct, which is our absentee counting board. They may begin counting absentee ballots the day before any election, not just the general. The law used to say that if you didn't get all your ballots, your absentee ballots counted by 10 o'clock on election night, then you would have the option of starting to count your ballots the day before the election. And then I think the law was changed later to say you must start counting the day before the election. But it was only in that situation, and it was only for general elections. This is a good change. So we knew that we didn't need all of election day to count the absentee ballots for the election in November, but we started them counting the ballots earlier anyway. There's no point in waiting and, you know, tempting fate. Just get them counted as soon as you can, as soon as the law allows. Of course, we understand, as we did before, that we can't reveal any results before the close of the polls. And we're not going to do that. We're not going to run the tapes on the voting machine tabulator until the election is over. So this does make us breathe a little easier when we know that we have the ballots counted well in advance of the close of the polls. We always have to wait until the close of the polls. Even now, with the current law, you know, if ballots came in right at 8 o'clock, and you know we're checking the drop box at 8 o'clock, we still need to count those, and so we're not finished with the absentees until the very end. So now we're going to go to, well, it starts on number 21. This is a very long section. This new section 53.33 of the code called unlawful return of ballot. And actually they changed it once this last session, and then they changed it again to make it even more strict on how ballots could be returned. The only people that may return a ballot for somebody else, well, the only people that can return a ballot are the voter, him or herself, or someone living in the voter's household, an immediate family member, a special precinct election official delivering a ballot. It's a team of 2 people. I know some of you have done that before for us, or a delivery agent. This is a new term in the law, the delivery agent. And this is only in the case of somebody who, due to blindness or other disability, can't return the ballot by themselves. So that person can still have a family member or a member of their household return their ballot, but they may also use this delivery agent who would be none of those people. It's just that everybody else can't use a delivery agent. They can only use those other people. And so they have to sign this form. They can only return 2 absentee ballots per election. They have to fill out a receipt. They have to collect the voter's designation form and give that to our office. Now, the whole thing about this is that it's not something that our office can really enforce. If somebody stops at the counter and drops off a ballot, we don't say, you know, let me see your ID and let me check to see if you brought any other ballots in, or let me see if you're related to that person whose ballot you're bringing in. We're just going to take their ballot. Now, if somebody else sees that somebody has done this improperly, then they can call the cops on them or whatever. And so, you know, I asked our office, did we see evidence of this in this last election? And they say, you know, you really can't tell. Now, they did have a lot of people who did offer voluntarily information about themselves as somebody returning a ballot for somebody else. And in all cases that happened, they were a legitimate person who was under the law allowed to return that ballot. So this is something that, like I say, we're not going to be able to know how it's all being, whether it's being abused or not, but it does put a chilling effect on returning ballots, which was easy in the past under the law. The buzzword for this one was ballot harvesting, which was used in a pejorative sense in a situation in North Carolina, which you might remember, where somebody was going out and fraudulently getting their hands on absentee ballots and voting them for other people without their knowledge, and then turning them in and getting them counted. What we're used to here in Iowa is, you know, ballots coming in legitimately. You know, all evidence indicates that they are sent in by the person who requested them, that they were the right person to ask for a ballot. You know, if this is something that was being described like what happened in North Carolina, you would run into situations where somebody would say, what? I didn't send you a ballot, or, you know, here, I want to request a ballot. Oh, sorry, you already requested a ballot according to our records. Well, no, I didn't. And let me see the signature on that. So, you know, once again, I think this is just a reaction to situation that doesn't exist.
Grant, could I ask a question?
Yes.
Supposing someone wanted to help people to return their ballots, would there be any legal reason why they couldn't just give them a stamped envelope with your address on it and fold it up and stick it in there and put it in the mail?
I don't advise that because we send out ballots with envelopes with the ballots. The postage is already paid.
Okay, go ahead and do that then.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. I mean,
it seems like, okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. But yeah, we're not going to advise anybody to try to find a way around this. Hopefully it's going to be no big deal for people to either drop it in the mail themselves, pin it to their mailbox so that the delivery person can pick it up and take it back to the post office or whatever. But it is conceivably, potentially going to be a problem for some people.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Then moving on to election day, the main change is that number 4 there, polls close at 8 p.m. for all elections. It used to be 9 p.m. for primaries and generals. Now going down to number 14 here. This is something that we did see an effect of in this past election. When delivering results on election night, the PEOs, that stands for precinct election officials, must return the printed results and memory device from the precinct voting machine. So that means we need to get that information that night. That's something that we always did anyway. The delivery must be done by 2 PEOs, one from each political party for partisan elections, or by a person designated by the auditor, which can be a law enforcement officer. They have to be returned in a securely sealed envelope with detailed instructions on how you seal it. The problem that we had with this is not an insurmountable problem, but it's saying that 2 precinct workers, if it's done by precinct workers, 2 of them have to leave the polling place to bring this in. We want this information as quickly as possible. The press and the candidates and all you people are breathing down our necks, wanting the results as quickly as possible. We want to accommodate you, but we have to wait for those memory devices to come back from the precinct so that we can upload that information into a computer that is not connected to the internet. We can't let 2 precinct workers leave as soon as the polls close, pull that memory stick. They have a lot of responsibilities. You can't legally just have one person sitting there with those ballots. So we have a lot of precincts where there's only 3 precinct workers. And so that's obviously a problem there. Even if they have more, there's a lot of work to be done in tearing down the polling place, and we don't want to interrupt that. They've had a long day, they want to get home. So we are allowed to have other people do it. And so we did, and we've done this in the past too. We've had, we asked for other county employees to assist us and go out and pick up and be runners to pick up these memory devices. And so we had to do that for basically all the precincts in this election. And, we have to pay those people. So we're already paying the precinct workers. This is an additional expense. And when we get into a bigger election, when we're using all of our precincts, we'll need more of them. So, and it's not the biggest problem in the world, but it's just another example of the effects of paranoia that is due to irresponsible allegations of election misconduct. So, number 2, under after election day, the Secretary of State must order post-election audits for all elections. It used to be a requirement for general elections. The Secretary of State could, on his own motion, require audits in other elections, and he has for all other elections since the post-election audit legislation was introduced. That is a good thing. This is always a good thing. The post-election audit is, in my mind, similar to a recount. When you have a very close election, a candidate can request a recount and doesn't have to pay a bond if the difference is less than 1% or 50 votes, whichever is greater. So whenever that happens, and it's happened plenty of times in elections in Blackhawk County in my tenure, and I like to have recounts because they always show that our voting machines gave the right totals. They show that there aren't any shenanigans. The vote total turns out to be accurate. If there's any changes, it's because if you're looking at a ballot and it's not the machine looking at it, you might be able to determine the will of the voter in a way that the voting machine cannot. And it's the law requires us in that case to, if we can determine the will of the voter, to count that ballot. So there's sometimes very small differences in those recounts. And so this is actually, in most cases, it's going to be less ballots being recounted than a recount, because the Secretary of State just after the election will pick at random one precinct in each county in the state, and the county has to have a recount of the office that takes the top position on that ballot. And once again, all of our post-election audits have shown that our election night counts are accurate. So I think this is a great law. I think that's pretty much it. There are some interesting things here under new duties for both the Secretary of State and the County Auditor, and then there's some very interesting things under violations and penalties, where some penalties have been stiffened. And number 6 there, if there's a technical infraction issued to a county auditor by the Secretary of State, then the Secretary of State shall also impose a fine not to exceed $10,000. So that, as you might suspect, has affected the morale of some county auditors around the state. And also number 1 there, where it says willful violation of election law by an election official. That's not just county auditors and administrators, that's precinct election officials. And obviously, if it's willful, then you should be punished. But willful can be, a hazy line sometimes. And, I don't know of any cases that have been pursued on this, but once again, it can kind of scare off some people from wanting to do this work, which is a shame. So that covers it for me. And sorry to take so long, but we can prolong it if you have any questions.
Excellent. Wow. Thank you. It's interesting. It's kind of a mixed bag. 1 or 2 things you seem to think were pretty okay or did not affect things. And other things seem to be, can I say the word, a real stinker.
You said it, not me.
In my own nonpartisan way.
Yeah, well, I do think that a lot of these changes were unnecessarily onerous for voters, but I feel that it's only fair that I point out the changes that I believe were good.
Good, excellent. Does anybody have any questions?
Found the system worked beautifully for me. As soon as I knew,
speak up.
Oh, excuse me, my fault. As soon as I knew that Cedar Falls was going to have a runoff for mayor, I went online, found a form, printed it off, and sent it in, requesting an absentee ballot. I received it the day after you were required to start mailing them out. And so your office was very efficient, as it has been for all the other absentee ballot requests that I've had. And then I mailed it right back the next day. Sorry, Sherry. But I wasn't going to let it linger. And And I know I can go online and find out if you received it, which is another benefit, I think, of the web. So I want to thank you, your office staff, for their efficiency and making me feel assured that my vote was counted.
Thanks, Judy. I appreciate you letting us know that everything went well. Of course, we want to know if things don't go well also, but it does make us feel good to know that things are working the way they're supposed to. And I'll pass along your kudos to our office staff.
Thank you.
Grant, I have a question. Do you think any of these changes in the law follow a pattern that other states have passed also?
Yes, I think it's fairly demonstrable, although the person who is responsible for most of this legislation, Senator Robbie Smith from Davenport, claims that this is all stuff that he came up with on his own, but it is very similar to laws that have been changed in other states. And there's, you know, there's a national organization, it's no secret, that has tried to get legislatures to pass certain types of legislation, and this follows that pattern.
Well, speaking of other states, may I ask, the idea of having the extra layer of a request form, is it true there are states where they just mail ballots, actual ballots out to everybody? Let's not even bother with request forms, since we can track where every ballot goes and when it comes back.
Sharon, I'm sorry. I distracted myself by turning off my screen. Your question was about tracking ballots, but I didn't catch the import of it.
Right. Okay. So I understand there are states, they don't even bother with ballot request forms. They just mail everybody a ballot.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is
Some
that
states
true?
do that.
Yeah.
Some states do that with great success. They are very pleased with how that's worked. More and more states are doing it all the time. And it's something that I have advocated for a long time in Iowa. It's a much more controversial issue now than it was 10 years ago, but I was advocating for it 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, talk about, I mean, if what I have told people is if Amazon can track, and the Postal Service can track every package where it is every step of the way, why would you think we cannot track ballots? And if somebody chooses not to vote their ballot, okay. It's not like somebody, you know, it's, well, anyway, I'm pleased to know, and I hope that's the way that we're going, and I hope we get some representatives who are copying those states.
Yes. I think it's interesting. Now you have me wanting to do some research to see what their voter turnout is compared to ours. I would imagine that makes participation rates go up.
You know, it does, from the research that I've seen, it does, but probably not as much as you expect.
Yeah.
You reach a threshold where you're just getting ballots to people who are going to vote anyway. And there are still a lot of people who you might be getting ballots to, but like Sharon says, if people don't want to vote them, they don't have to. And a lot of people don't want to vote them.
Yeah. Grant, do you know where U.S. ranks now in terms of percentage of people that vote in so-called democratic countries? I know it's not nearly as high as a lot of other ones.
I couldn't understand your whole question, EJ. Say it again, please.
How our voter participation ranks among other countries in the world that we compare ourselves to. I think it's what I think in Canada they actually enroll people to vote too in registration, but you know,
I know there are a lot of countries that have higher participation rates, and there's different reasons for that. Australia, I don't know about Canada, but Australia requires voting.
Right.
So that's a good way to get a good turnout. But other countries get higher turnout without requiring it.
Grant, so during the last general election, because Iowa, and I'm sure other states were the same, but Iowa in particular, I remember, because you were able to send everybody out the absentee ballot ahead of time, the voter turnout was much greater than it had been in previous years. Am I not right?
In the primary, it was a huge increase because we always have very low turnout for primary. The general was an increase. Statewide, it was not a huge increase in Blackhawk County. I don't think it was a record high for the general, but other places did see a larger turnout. And like I say, for the primary, it's just not on people's radar. And when they receive a request form in the mail, all of a sudden it's something that they pay attention to. Plus it's something that was being discussed more as an issue. And so that was just an exponential increase there.
Right. Well, it depends on what the issues are, and if it really affects somebody, they're going to step up and vote more often, I think. Thank you.
Grant, what would be one or two things that you would lobby to get out of the new bill? What would you like to see gone?
I would definitely want to see that first day of voting and mailing out ballots changed back at least to 29 days. As you know, before it was 29 days, it was 40 days. And it was reduced from that. And I didn't like that. And then to reduce it further down. And the justification that some people gave for that was, well, other states have that small of a window, and so we can certainly accommodate that. Why? What's the point?
Yeah.
But that really, like I say, pushing us down to a 5-day window to do this huge mailing it's going to be tough. And so I would like to see that changed. I would like to see ballots still accepted after close of the polls if they were postmarked the day before. I mean, we had a big problem with postmarks. And so then they made a requirement that we have this postal barcode on there, which is a lot more efficient than the postmarks. And so, you know, that situation was being attended to. And now they're only used in the case of like overseas and military voters and people in the stay-at-home program. They can still have their ballots come in after Election Day. And there are a couple other things, you know, just about everything that I said that I didn't like, I would like changed.
Well, one would think the auditors would know a thing or two about what works and what is a barrier to voters. So
I'm glad you see it that way. I agree.
I appreciate your perspective. Okay, let's show our appreciation by the fake clap on Zoom.
Thank you all, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this. You gave me a lot of latitude, and I took it all. So, anytime you want us to talk more about this or need more information, please let us know.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Grant, I have one question.
Yes.
Was the legislation passed on a purely partisan vote? I think it was, but maybe.
Was it passed on a purely partisan vote?
Yeah.
Pretty much. I don't know if there were any deviations one way or the other, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
Pat's shaking her head. I think she was probably watching it very closely.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, it was pretty much on party lines, yes.
All right. Well, Mike, let's talk briefly about our website and Facebook pages.
Did everyone catch that briefly remark? Earlier, someone complimented the auditor's office for the quick turnaround on these requests. The post office is doing a good job too. I think both of them are just doing excellent. So there. Well, let's see. I'm going to share my screen as well. See if I can still find my, no, that's not it. What happened? I got to fooling around here, and I'm going to have to bring my document up again. I'm going to talk about the website and the social media activities we've been doing. There it is. And bring it back up. See if I can share it, get it right this time. There it is. Website and social media. And note that if you have any questions as we go along, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask, and we'll see what we can do. I've got some important addresses here that pertain to our web presence, I guess you could say. The Facebook page, the YouTube. I don't have a good address on that. Just search for LWV, BlackHawk-Bremer. There's our website, and there's our email address. Social media approach, we create Facebook events for forums and panels. The forums and panels are mostly created by Gene Sealand, and then we just act as like a conduit to the public for them. We then try to promote the panels and forums via the Facebook events. I try to create events for each event, and then what I do is like everyone else, I'm entitled to invite up to 500 of my 1,300 friends to attend that event. I do that, and then I wait a few days, and then I look to see which of my friends have actually indicated that they're interested or they're going to go. By go, that means actually watch the event. And then I send them a nudge saying, hey, could you invite some of your friends? It's kind of like a pyramid scheme. Sometimes I have really good luck with it. Sometimes I'm kind of slow and I don't get the job done, but sometimes we can get quite a bit of traffic. Then after the event is over, we either download the Facebook video or grab the Zoom video, because most of these forums do involve a Zoom session that is then fed to Facebook via a live stream. And then we edit it. We put on a title page and a credits page and upload it to our YouTube archive, which is since 2018, we've been doing this. It's become pretty well filled up. And we're trying to be more consistent with the promotion. As you can tell by the way I'm describing it, I just sort of made up that scheme of creating the event, then inviting people, monitoring who is going to be there, and then nudging them to invite their friends. And we're not spending any money promoting it. I suppose we could, maybe we should try it sometimes, but that seems untargeted. We would just be sending out invitations to people all over the Cedar Valley. And I'm thinking, why not go with the kindred spirits? Maybe I'm just being cheap. Our Facebook page now has 626 followers. I regularly get notices of people taking a look at it or liking us or showing other interest. That may not seem like a huge amount, but it's not a huge amount. But if you compare it to the attendance at our forums, unless it's 2017 and we're talking about inhibiting teachers unions, we're not going to see that kind of interest or attendance. So it is some penetration into the market of people who are politically aware. In 2021, we had, of course, that's a odd numbered year. We had 4 candidate forums, 1 panel discussion, and 1 annual meeting, all of which were mediated by the League of Women Voters professional Zoom license. The Cedar Falls Mayor's Forum had a reach of 769, which shows a tremendous amount of interest. Waterloo Mayor's Forum, which was mostly just Quentin Hart and not as hotly contended, had a reach of only 319. The election law update, which had some auditors and people like Grant, had 535. Cedar Falls School Board, which was, I didn't realize that it was so hotly contested. Maybe it was just good citizens. They had a reach of 895. And the Waterloo School Board, 267. Now, again, these were in a community of over, 130,000 or whatever in BlackHawk County. And those may look like small numbers, but I compare them to what I would see over in the Central Middle School auditorium when we would have forums back before the pandemic, and maybe you'd see 35 people there. So we do have people that are showing an interest in this stuff. I have a comment here. I should read it. Creation of Facebook events and promotion works. What I need to do is recruit some people who are also on Facebook who agree with me and are more diligent than I am, and get out there and spread the word. It doesn't cost anything but time, which I know is important. Our YouTube channel, the most important, popular one, and remember, this is after the fact. These are videos that are posted after the day after. The Cedar Falls School Board had 727 views for a total of 202 hours. There are people that really care about this stuff, and I'm thinking that we could snowball it with some more effort. The webpage, it's got institutional stuff like a calendar. God, I love calendars. They're such a wonderful thing. But when we have an event, put the damn thing in the calendar. That way, if it's wrong, somebody can let us know. And if it's right, well, then it's right. The webpage. The big deal with the webpage over the last year is that we now have buttons with PayPal that allow people to make donations and to also fill out forms and become members or renew their memberships. And even though it's PayPal, you don't have to have a PayPal account. You just have to have a credit card, and I think some debit cards would work too. We've had some hiccups with it, nothing terribly bad. I'm thinking that I'm going to be talking to the president one of these days. And I think we're going to be adding the link to the donations page or the membership page to the signature line of her email, and start promoting it. I have gotten to the point where I despise writing checks. I much prefer to click on something, pay it with my credit card, or pay it with my online banking. the idea of getting out my checkbook, if I can find it, and writing out a paper check, I find it kind of annoying anymore. And I think that there are more and more people like that. We shall see. The webpage also has other things like the bylaws and contact information. And by the way, we have a phone number now. You can find it at the bottom of the web page. Not every page in the website, but on the front page. And it's a Google voicemail, which forwards to the our email address. And then that email address forwards to the president and vice president, so that we immediately get a transcript and the actual recording of the message left. We were actually using that at a couple of our forums last year, where people would have questions or they were having some technical problem. They would call that number and it would pop up on my email as I was watching the Zoom session, and I was able to call them back and help them out. So it's kind of cool to have a phone number, I think. This is really Gene Seeland's business, but I added it.
Let's let Gene do it.
And we're going to let Gene do that. And are there any questions?
Are there any extravagant compliments?
Well,
thank you, dear.
Okay. I have a few anecdotes if you'd like. Is it getting late?
That's all right. Jean, are you still with us?
I am still with you. And if you would put those dates, just scroll down just a little bit, Mike, so we can see the dates again. Those are the dates of the forum. And Mike, you could have very well have done this also. We met just this week and we came up with these dates and these topics. We are going to begin our forums on Zoom. We're also hoping maybe to have sort of a hybrid session starting in March where we have Zoom and an opportunity to come in person. The forums will be from 4:30 to 6:30 as usual. And I would encourage anyone, we have so many capable people, we need moderators, so I would encourage you all to think about being a moderator for one of these forums. And I will answer questions if you have any. Otherwise, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And again, we all appreciate you. And we will be, if you don't want to volunteer yourself, find a friend and volunteer a friend. How's that? All right, excellent. Okay, EJ and Michelle, would you please talk to us about the Partners in Education and our Adopt Family program?
Okay, I'll start if that's okay. I'll let Michelle go more into the details of completing the Partners or the Adopted Family. I went to the meeting, last meeting was on December 9th, which is last Thursday at 7 in the morning. And everybody is participating well in the Adopted Family program. Mrs. Clark is waiting to get some more information back from 7th and 8th grade social studies teachers. What we're thinking about doing this year is having a separate topic for each grade, which probably isn't a bad idea. And she's trying to coordinate it with some of the things that are being taught. We'll have the final say on what we're going to have for an essay contest. And you know, hopefully we'll be able to figure something out where we can have the kids there, or maybe even if we have a Zoom, some type of recording where we see them on video. One of the problems we've had in the past is between getting them there, since they're not old enough to drive, the parents are working or they have other kids to haul places. It's sometimes difficult to get them there. And we've also had conflicts. The sport that seems to take the most of them away, I think, over the years is girls track. Because we've had that a couple times where that, you know, there was a track meet and, you know, they have to go to that. But I know the school likes us participating in this, and they get their pictures up in the school. And Mrs. Clark is very enthusiastic about it. So I think that makes a big difference. And hopefully she'll be there for a while, but I know some of the other people like it too. So, and we've been seeing all the counselors for the 3 grades at the meetings as well. They have it in the counselor's office now. And they actually feed us a little bit for breakfast, but which isn't bad for 7 in the morning. And I should probably be able to make most of the meetings, but if I have a conflict, I know Jerry is my backup, and I don't know, Pat is, I think gone. Pat did it a number of years ago, and I'm trying to remember, anybody else here helped out with Partners in Education? It's a good program. I don't know if Cedar Falls has it or not. I just do it for the Waterloo schools, and we have a number of members that live in Cedar Falls, so possibly that might be something to consider, if we had a school there that would like to help or like us to help out. That's all from my end of it. And we have one family, and Michelle's been working on, we've been sending her donations, and I think our treasury wrote a check as well per a motion for $50. So Michelle, you want to talk about where you are now as far as getting the items to the family this year?
You bet, EJ. The gifts were delivered today.
Okay.
So it was a good day. We had 2 children in our family. Zara is 12 years old and Natalie. And they were really fun to buy for. And I had fun buying. I bought everything at Target. And it was due to the generous support of the league and all the members that we were able to have $575 to spend. So that's amazing amount of money. We've never had that much. And I know Sherry asked me, how many times have you done this, or how many years and how much? Well, definitely, I don't know how many years, but it's definitely, I would say at least $300 more than we've ever had to work with. So these 2 young girls really are going to have a great Christmas. I was able to purchase everything on their list that they provided. Of course, a lot of clothes. I spent $205 on Zara and $197 on Natalie. And with the remainder of the money, and this is with Sherry and EJ's advice, we purchased a $175 gift card to Hy-Vee. So I think that the family will just have a great Christmas due to your support. And it was a lot of fun to do it again this year. So thanks for asking. And anything else, EJ, you'd like to add?
Are you saying you'd be happy to help us out next year too? Because I know you do a great job of the shopping. That's most of the work. So
yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And I had fun getting them all wrapped and everything. So no, I'd be glad to consider it next year.
Well, thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
I think that's the end of our report. So
Oh my goodness, I could just hug both of you and all of you. What my grandkids did during the early part of COVID is we would do this for a hug. So consider yourself all hugged. Yeah, I don't remember that kind of money. But I told them, in my opinion, the money and gift cards to Hy-Vee could be used for groceries, could be used for laundry soap, could be used for gas. So it was like gold to that mom. And I think that's just wonderful. So good job. Santa would be so proud of you. And I just can't imagine the faces of those little girls when they open all those things. I have to tell you the funny story. Remember, long time ago, when I was a young single mom with a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, I was the recipient of some people buying presents. And for some crazy reason, I'm sorry, I tell this same story every year, but for some reason, it still cracks me up. They wrapped up a canned ham. And my son, even at 3 years old, knew that he was supposed to respond because for some reason they put his name on this canned ham. So he unwrapped it and looked at it, and he looked up with this little phony sweet smile and said, "Just what I wanted."
He was
Oh,
more of a ham than the ham.
Oh my goodness, that is just it. Oh boy. But I have to tell you, I remember how it felt when those people left. And I looked at those bags of groceries and those presents and just sat down and cried my eyes out. And yeah. Okay. Well, tell you what, folks, I was going to show you a marvelous PowerPoint, well, Google Slides, with pictures of the past year. I don't think I'm going to take time to do that. I am going to instead send it. I'm going to send a PDF, I think, to all of your email. And I just want you to know the big thing I wanted to do was say, you know, our last normal gathering, December 2019, seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? But okay, we'll do it. You talked me into it. There we are at the suffrage play. There we are at the Brothers rally. Our hard one not done, and oh my goodness, summer is veggies and grandkids around here. But we did the candidate forum. We did our virtual annual meeting. We were at Fall Fest. We had our one shining moment of glory where we came back for the August face-to-face board meeting. Notice that we're all masked up, but we're still in business. When we get done tonight, I'm going to be submitting a letter to the editor. Actually, it's a guest column about redistricting. And I want to just say my name is on it, but Mike helped me a great deal. And I appreciate that man so much. We will be talking to you folks more about all of our planning. I hope some of you will contact me and say, yes, put me down for the Hawkeye Reads book club. We're going to be working with people from the Waterloo Public Library and folks from Hawkeye. And We the Interwoven is an anthology of bicultural Iowa. So it's people who have immigrated here and they have kind of a dual perspective on things. And then later on, I hope you guys will join me for a book group, this wonderful book. And actually Sharon and I think Pat Harper or Marcia, one of them turned around when we were doing the voter registration at the Waterloo Public Library. And this book was right behind her head. So then I had to
believe
grab
it was Pat, right? Wasn't
Yes.
that you? Yes, Pat gets
I
the
think
credit
so.
for that.
So I bought 6 copies. I also bought a young people's edition, and I've got my older grandson reading it. We're going to talk about it over Christmas break. Okay, but for 2020, our focus is voting, free and fair. Okay, voter registration, voter education, growing our group and finding like-minded people who may not necessarily want to join League, but have a passion for registering voters. I said, let's think big. And I said, oh, I think we need 12 people. Sharon said, what do you want to tell them what you said?
Oh dear, I'm not sure. Is that talking for the whole league or specifically for?
I think
voter
you said
registration?
20.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking to some people to help us either behind the scenes or directly registering voters. Okay, so folks, enjoy your holidays. Come back in January, ready to work. And you'll be hearing from us one way or another about a meeting for voter registration to do some planning. We want to look at our voter registration kits and see what we need to add and evaluate what's in the box. All right. Anything else for the good of the cause, folks?
I hear you loud and clear.
Oh, I love it. I forgot to say, Willie Mae is on my phone. Say hi again, Willie Mae.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Willie
Merry
Mae.
Christmas to everybody.
She's been listening. She had some technical problems. And I said, well, do you want to just listen on my phone? So that's what she's been doing. All right. Well, not to get mushy, but I love you all. Please be safe. Have a wonderful holiday. And know that I am thinking about each and every one of you and feeling so pleased to be your friend and your colleague in League.
So Sherry, this is Marcia.
Yes.
Can I just quickly in 2 seconds tell there's nothing new in the checking account since like the middle of November. But I am going to let you guys know because I know the secretary is going to want to write this down. So right now in checking, we have $1,344.53 in savings, $133.80, and of course the CD rounding it out at 1,000. That's it.
Excellent. I knew I forgot somebody. I just checked you off the list and skipped you on by.
That's fine.
All right, Jerry, you want to say something?
Merry Christmas to all and Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry, for all you do.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
For this year.
Thank you.
Cheers to that.
I
Jerry
enjoy
and
it,
Mike.
you guys. And I'm working on more boxes to send off to you and I special collections. So I'm feeling good.
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 Good night, all.
Good night. Thank
night,
you for
everybody.
joining
Good
us.
night, everybody, and have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
You too.
Thank you, Willie Mae. It was so sweet listening to